I would like to discuss about the importance of being vulnerable with yourself and being vulnerable with others. Vulnerability is self-trust, right? In order for us to go into those deeper layers within ourselves, we have to trust ourselves, right? And vulnerability, as we know in our culture, it's considered weakness, right? And for men especially, it's considered weakness in the way that competition for men is aggressive, right? And that is has only been in a patriarchal age, right? When we think of the gladiator, the Romans, right? If a man shows any sign of weakness, I'm gonna, get him in and, create some mayhem and, steal your whatever it is, or do all this, mess you up, or I'm gonna, take you down, that kind of stuff, right? When we think of the Romans, the gladiator sort of mindset, especially when it comes to men, I'm gonna take you down, right? So we kind of have I'm gonna take you down. If you show any sign of vulnerability, I'm gonna jab you in that area, right? And that still happens today, right? Where we do have to be cautious and we do have to be discerning because yes, we cannot trust the world, right? And that is nothing that we should be like, create some sort of dilemma with that. It's just how it is, right? But we may not be able to trust the world, right? Vulnerability and somebody gonna jab a knife right in that sort of vulnerable place. But we do need to trust ourselves because when we trust ourselves, we can actually have what Yogi Bhajan says is 3 to 9 seconds of like intuitive awareness. Where if we do trust ourselves and our intuition, we can actually look at a person and we know, right? If we can trust them or not. So there isn't this whole kind of, being with them for 4 months and then, they sting you and you're like, oh man, they stung me, but I knew they were gonna, because I felt something, right? So Yogi Bhajan kind of trains us as you can say yogic practitioners to have that 3 to 9 seconds of like literally you can just right, about a person because you can kind of see it in just their character, right? You can see it in their integrity, what they're capable of. So when you know what they're capable of, you have that agility and you have that clarity of a mind to be able to create you can say a strategy, right? A strategy on how to deal with you know right, we all have 26 personalities, right? So some of those personalities, that psyche, some of them have, behaviors or habits we got from childhood or from ideology or, from our parents, caretakers that are questionable, right? When we do have that intuitive awareness, we always kind of have a strategy or we're in the know, right? We're in the know. So we're not hanging out with a date for 6 months and then realize, oh, this was never really the person. We know it, right? Especially as women when it comes to dating men. We can kind of sense what a man's about. Because men, they can try to hide, but for us women, when we really listen and ask questions to a man, we can really know what's going on and what the habit is, what the behavior is, what the past relationship is, what the childhood kind of thing is, and how they take it in and how they handle it. Right? We can kind of see it as women, especially. We're in the know. But vulnerability is a practice we have to have with ourselves, right? In our sort of intimate corner of our house, an area where we devote to ourselves and to basically it can be a meditation practice. It can be an awareness practice, right? Just an area in our house where we can be vulnerable, right? And we can cry and we can speak to ourselves. We can journal. We can sing. We can, listen to podcasts or lectures on subjects of, matters of the heart, right? Because having that vulnerability where you can really go deep with yourself, and you can really trust yourself to go deep and to uncover these sort of wounds and be honest with yourself and how you're feeling, right? To be honest with yourself, that is going to not only make you more sincere and endearing, but it's also going to make you more trustworthy as a person, right? To yourself, that you can actually follow through on what your intuition is guiding you to do. So what that means is when you are more vulnerable with yourself in your own sort of, safe corner, when you do present yourself to others, you become more trustworthy, right, to yourself and also to them, meaning you're honest, right? So we're not creating these connections or these relationships or these ties with people that really are not going anywhere or are unproductive or are based off of sort of a lie we tell ourselves or a comfort that is not supporting our expansion or our growth, right? When we're trustworthy to ourselves, we actually begin to build like an integrity and a character. And any real friend, right, any authentic partner will actually encourage that, right? Will actually be like, applaud that from us, right? Because when we do have more trustworthy of ourselves, we can be more honest, trustworthy with them, and then we can start to have some real sort of growth and some real sort of conversation with another human being, right? That actually has some substance and that actually has some transformation. Because we all want to be transformed in conversation with another human being. We all want to be inspired. We all want to like go the depths with another person in conversation, right? But if we're not trustworthy with ourselves, most likely you're not trustworthy in this kind of conversation where we beat around the bush. We're not really being honest. There's no strength behind what we're saying. It's not really believable because we don't really feel it, right? Because it's gotten like disconnected from our feeling body, right? That's not really exciting, right? We want to have exciting conversations that kind of shake us up in the way that it's not good or bad. It just shakes us up in the way that it really, we want to be sparked, right? We want to be expanded. We want to be triggered. We want to be kind of challenged in conversation where it really asks us to be more of ourselves, not less. Not I'm going to hide and I'm going to, sort of lie or just kind of beat around the bush and just not really do what I know I need to do in order for me to really create authentic bonds, right? So vulnerability also we know has to do with matters of the heart, right? And matters of the heart, especially for a man, it's a little bit different for a woman than it is for a man. For a man, matters of the heart is more guarded, right? Because men, they're the competition, right? That's how they grow, right? That's how they mature as a man, is through competition, right? They thrive off of competition. And competition is healthy, right? Because it encourages endurance, encourages tolerance, as well as it encourages teamship and allies, and it also encourages integrity for men. But aggressive competition, now that's something that is a patriarchal sort of structure that, Roman sort of medieval, Roman, Romanesque, medieval, kind of sort of design, right? Aggressive competition. And a lot of it is about sort of attacking, matters of the heart, right? It's sort of getting into, it has to do with that sort of attack, right? For a man, it has to do with matters of the heart, okay? It has to do with, emotions and being expressive, right? So for men, uh, being vulnerable in the matters of the heart is also how they're able to, not just men, but also women, how we're able to really find our fulfillment, right? Emotional fulfillment, because we believe that we can be creative, or we can, continue to be prosperous or wealthy without like emotional fulfillment. But what happens is that sort of quality of life, it's not as rich tasting, right? It's not as rich. Kind of think about going into like a Chinese restaurant, and they just, all they do is they rush making the food, and it's just, you can tell that the cooks in the back are just pissed, agitated, they don't want to be there, and they're not getting paid much, versus like an actual, let's say, a Japanese, sort of thing, where you go, and the cooks in the back actually are genuine cooks that enjoy cooking. That there's a difference in the quality of taste, and a sensitive person will know that difference, right? So we get into this, especially right now, we're into this hustle and hassle, like this, making this, making this, making this, but a lot of it is lacking that richness, and that richness of taste, and that richness of, you it has to do with everything has a frequency to it. Every sort of thing has a frequency to it. So if that hustle and hassle taste is not as sort of sweet or rich as like the taste of like a fully sort of, like gone into it, and like, I'm so sincere about making this bread, right? It's like massaging that bread, making that bread. Like, like I love this bread. Like, that's a complete frequency difference. So when we do create, and it's from matters of the heart, right? That we bring richness to that. So even if, a project or endeavor or something creative, or even a connection, a relationship, and we are tapped into matters of the heart, it tends to be more of a rich experience. And the way that, what we offer tends to be richer, right? And what we receive tends to be richer, right? Because when we really do, you can say, open our hearts, right? Naturally, over time, maybe not instantly, right? Because we kind of we have to battle through these sort of tests, right, that we all have, when it comes to connecting with an actual, authentic person, right? We have to battle through these sort of non-authentic sort of, tests that just come in right when we want to open our heart. But when we kind of battle out through those tests, and we reach that kind of other side, when we do have that opening with another person, we can actually experience, reciprocity, right? And that's what we all human beings want to experience. That is just, we are unavailable to our heart, we're unavailable to our patterning and our behaviors, and therefore when we are connecting with another person, we're basically, we're not even available to what we're doing and how we're doing it, and we can't even make a connection to how this affects the other person, affects the relationship, affects us. So therefore this relationship becomes very much just a disconnect, because we're not very much available to what it is that I need and I want, right? We're not connected to our honesty. Therefore, connecting with any human being, either romantic or friend, it lacks that richness, that sort of taste, right? Because again, it really only takes one person to become rich. I'm talking about rich with, matters of the heart, for everybody to all of a sudden kind of like start to get rich, right? It only takes one person to really inspire the relationship, or to move the relationship into a new direction, or into a more fulfilling, or a deeper sort of connection, right? Or to bring some sort of harmony, or to bring some sort of balance to the connection. It only takes that one person, right? But what happened, or what's going on, what we can see with our sort of vulnerability is that we, especially in romantic relationships, like, we 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 get kind of agitated when we have to open up. We're like, why do I have to open up, right? We're like, why do I need to do that? Like, it's unnecessary. I don't want to do it, right? And then we get the anger, right? Because when we are closed off, we get very angry about that because we're not coming across right, and we tend to not get what we truly want. We may get something, but then we're like kind of angry because it's really not the thing that we want, but then we're like, we're closed off to the thing that we want, right? That feeling or that excitement or that sort of just like, just whatever passion, desire that you want to feel in your body, you didn't get that, right? So I'm angry about it. So we kind of project that onto our partners where, like, I'm closed off, I'm like, I'm bored, and like, there's, I'm not really feeling it, right? It's because we're not available, we're not honest with ourselves, right? With the matters of the heart, right? Um, we're not rich, right, in matters of the heart. So therefore, we can't really present a sincere and endearing, you know, person that we are to friends, family, or lover, right? Um, so with vulnerability, it really, it creates a freedom within you, right? Because when you start to develop vulnerability, it's not just, you're expressing yourself and, you feel embarrassed, or you feel ashamed, or you feel like, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, or that's too much, right? That's too much. As you start to become more vulnerable with yourself, you start to just intuitively, naturally develop a greater discernment, right? A lot of us, it's interesting, I've seen people who work on no vulnerability whatsoever, and a lot of these people have no discernment, right? It's interesting, meaning they can't really discern is um, what is going to bring them more energy and what's going to bring them less energy. They don't know how to discern that. They don't know how to discern their time, or discern their, the energy they're giving out, or their friend groups, or kind of just their behaviors and habits. They don't really discern, right? But those people who tend to be vulnerable with themselves and matters of the heart tend to be more discerning and kind of productive with their friend groups, or the way they spend their time, or their habits, or their behaviors. They tend to be more aware of what's affecting them or disrupting them, right? What gives them more energy, and what kind of strips away energy that kind of just makes them feel bored, and just, sort of like a waste of time kind of thing, right? So vulnerability also, again, it makes us more in tune with integrity, right? So like when we do express ourselves, we start to have a greater articulation in the way that we start to become like really good poets, right? Where we can start to speak on, difficult, you know, difficult subjects, and have a greater articulation, rather than we never spoke to ourselves in our life, and we're never vulnerable. We don't go there. A lot of those people tend to have difficulty expressing or articulating themselves in situations that may be difficult, or that may pull on their emotions. They don't really know how to express or articulate, or they don't know how to deal with those sort of pulls, or there's the grief or the loss, or these sort of emotional sort of aches and ebbs that we naturally go through as humans. When we don't have that sort of vulnerability, we don't know how to handle it, we don't know how to deal with it, and therefore we're overwhelmed by it, and we kind of dwell in it, or we become embarrassed by those emotions, and we can become very unexpressed with it, right? Because we don't really know how to care for ourselves. So matters of the heart has everything to do with caring for yourself, right? For your emotional well-being, right? And that's everything vulnerability is. It really trains you to really step up and to have integrity with you, as in your behaviors, your habits, everything that's emotional, that emotional impulse, emotional commotion, like an emotional sort of sabotage or disruption that really has a hold on you. Vulnerability is a way for us to become more honest with how we're feeling, um, without becoming overwhelmed, or without becoming like people get kind of stuck in it, right? Or they keep repeating the same thing again and again, right? Becoming too sentimental and like watery and mucky and sort of murky with it. Being vulnerable is very much like a yogic practice of, again, learning how to express yourself and learning how to articulate yourself in a way that you're starting to become a greater poet, right? Where you can speak on behalf of your heart and on grief or loss or disappointment or betrayal or whatever it is, like a great poet, where it's inspiring, right? It becomes artistry to you. It doesn't become something you fear or something that, people want to attack, or, they want to, look at you weird or misunderstand you, right? A lot of times we feel misunderstood in the way we express our emotions because we're not expressing it honestly, right? And that's why we feel misunderstood by the friend, that, and another. Like, why don't they just understand, like, this emotional sort of experience, whatever grief or, matters of the heart that I'm going through that's causing burden or just causing some sort of disconnect with me, my heart, and my soul, right? Um, there's a misunderstanding, right? Is because we're not we're not giving them the honesty, right? We are just giving them, because a lot of us, we just give that, the mask or the facade, right? We do that. That's just kind of how we are, because we are protective, right? We've been trained through this rough patriarchal age of this aggression to wear a mask just to get by, right? Just to not gain that, sort of, that potential attack, because we do have that here in this world. So vulnerability, as Yogi Bhajan, or any, I use him because he's, sort of the master I follow. He was very much an honest man. He had great integrity. That was kind of his sort of mastery, was character and was integrity, right? That was his sort of, his sort of his archetype, right? So with that, it takes great vulnerability to have a character, to have an integrity that's very much tried and true, right? That actually um, is understood, right? And that is believable, and that actually leaves like an impact, like a soulful, sincere, endearing sort of like impact that really motivates and energizes you. And that's vulnerability as a man, right? And that's not something that we don't announce our business to people, or publicly, right? That's not what we're doing, right? Announcing whatever our deeper stuff, right, to just randoms. No, but we can learn, right, how to articulate and express, right, matters of a heart in a way that is of strength, not of like anger and like vengeance and like, F it and like, oh, like, oh, that kind of thing. Like, there's no energy in that, right? It's actually depleting, and it's not like exciting, and it really does nothing for you, and it does nothing for the other people, right? So again, vulnerability with yourself, you gain eventually strength when you learn to like better express and articulate yourself, when you learn to fine tune your emotional body, right? To fine tune yourself, and when it comes to your sort of the way you open up to feelings, right? And the way that you sort of like accept, embrace, and sort of like take those feelings and like move it into artistry, or and it's something that really makes you feel like you're becoming more of more soulful, sincere, right? Or you that kind of thing. Naturally, your language, right? Your sort of posture and just your sort of persona starts to become more captivating, right? Because we're captivated or we admire or we're impacted by people because really their emotional body, their matters of the heart is like really deep. And they might not be a poet or something like that, right? But we can feel it from them, right? That they feel deeply, and that's actually quite um, powerful, right? To know how to feel and to know how to move that feeling to something that's actually inspiring and something that actually makes you very honest. And we're talking about honest about everything, not just about light and love and the blessing and all that. We're talking about honest as in like everything, right? With strength, right? Um, that actually makes a person very relatable, believable, credible, and that creates a character for a person, right? We talk about character; these are big personality, right? Big personality, a big sort of energy, and usually a big energy is like I have a big sort of like emotional sort of like um, like expression, right? That's very moving, right? Even very, very moving, and that's what we want. We're the Earth is 75% water. Our bodies are like 75% water, right? We're moved by water, and we're moved by just the flow of it. We want that through our system. We don't want to be sort of just like overwhelmed constantly, right? We want to find our sort of ground with it. We want to find our peace with it, our ease. We're on the hunt for finding how we can trust ourselves and how we can learn and discover emotions through the ebb, through the flow, and how we can really find our our passion with it, right? When we talk about finding a passion with emotion, right? When we really find that passion with emotion, we find that sort of harmony with that passion of emotion, right? We start to trust that passion of emotion, or we start to feel more secure, like in expressing and articulating that passion of emotion. Actually, it becomes we feel alive. We feel alive, right? And that passion of emotion is is we feel alive because in vulnerability, in being honest and trustworthy with yourself and with other people and discerning, right? You're really seeing it for what it is, and clearing it out and looking at it clearly, right? You feel alive in the way that you start to move your life in a way that starts to command more maturity and more responsibility, but overall more magic, mystery, and manifestation of something that either in a connection, either in an endeavor, entrepreneurship, either in like a love relationship, either in family, that it, it's empowered, right? There's power to it. And it's not so weakened or shaky or biting the nails or edgy. It starts to become really like whoa, like, whoa, right? But we never get that sort of like either friend, family, lover, like, whoa, your emotional passion is like right spot on. Like, whoa, what have you been doing? Right? We don't do that and get to that unless we really do become vulnerable with ourselves. Right? Then when we look at somebody or when we speak to somebody, it's like, whoa, your emotional passion is like really like clear and like really powerful and like really like with integrity, that's not shaky, that's not like vulnerable. I'm just like, I don't like trust myself, and like that's like that, that doesn't really make us feel like, whoa, we're kind of like, okay, what's going on right there, right? So yeah, so I wanted to share this discussion on vulnerability with you guys to help you find your path of being vulnerable in a way that really opens up doors for you to get clear, right? About, again, matters of the heart, what you're doing, what you've been doing, your behaviors, your habits, your reactions, how you close off, how you're unexpressed, how you're not articulating, how you don't trust yourself, how you're not trustworthy and you're creating connections that are not trustworthy, right? Or you're being discerning, or you're not being entirely honest with yourself, with other people, and therefore you're not really getting the nutrients you need from a connection. You may be getting a connection, but you're not getting the nutrients, which has to do with emotional and spiritual maturity. That's nutrients. And that straight up comes from that moment of, whoa, like your emotional passion is just straight on. It's like, whoa, all of a sudden everybody in the room is like they just get taller in the way they're like, whoa, like that was powerful, right? And that was real honest and like real stuff right there. Like, whoa, you know? And we've all felt that, either listening to a lecture or, in school, or, listening to like a lecture like Yogi Bhajan. We all have like, whoa, like that's real stuff right there. Um, True stuff that it may be a little bit challenging to hear, but the way it's expressed, articulate is so clear. The emotional passion is so clear, so unified, and so vulnerably strong that we're moved, right? We're moved. We're moved by ourselves when we're like that, when we look at ourselves in the mirror and we get like that with ourselves, when we see that other people, like friends, family, whatever it is, we're like moved and like, whoa, like, wow, this is what it's about, right? Instant, like, spiritual, emotional maturity, and you start to open up in ways that you really start to become like a human being that actually has like the depth of of you, right? To kind of nourish you and give you that nutrients you need to actually do this life thing and be alive, and not do this life thing and you checked out and you died at like 37, right? And you've just been robotically, just that kind of thing with no emotional passion, just completely like, I don't know, like living elsewhere or somewhere thing, right? So I'm gonna leave you guys with these thoughts. So thank you. Satnam.